Could you imagine an entire world sober right now? An entire planet not touching a single drug. Could you imagine that for 1 second? That everybody in America did not smoke one hit of weed, smoke one cigarette, did not alter their dopamine levels in any way, shape, or form the entire livelihood, their entire life. Could you imagine that? Would you want that? Is that really what y'all want? There's a lot of things that people say they do or don't want. Either in society, domestically, privately, in their own house. They don't want their kids exposed to it. I can understand that. But to control others and what they do on a regular basis is where we have these debates and these discrepancies. Nobody wants control. Nobody wants to control you. But they're just making these laws so that they can keep their community safe and all these things. Unfortunately, legislation is redlining communities, keeping communities separate from one another, and thus ultimately it is affecting us negatively. We are growing up to be like little tribes and clans. We're growing up to hate one another. We're growing up with drama enveloping our lives. And the government is feeding off of these. The government's not only feeding off, they are making money and profiting directly from this redlining and separating of segregation of our societies and cultures. This is no longer just white versus black. This is a complete and utter separation of societies within one country. And it's just not big enough. I don't care if you are only taking up 1% of the country. It's not big enough to have multiple ideologies like that. And for not only to have multiple ideologies, but for them to counter one another, we're creating chaos. And you don't do that in one country. House divided falls. Haven't y'all heard of that? You guys haven't studied long enough to know that a house divided crumbles upon itself? Whether legislative branch or executive branch, what doesn't matter what part of society we're talking about. Any part of society. Any part of this free democracy will be affected with all this segregation and splitting up of cultures. Now we're splitting up money. Now we're forcing people that have other beliefs and cultures, now we're forcing them to have to change in order to do business with us. Well, we will fund you, we'll do business with you, but you gotta change and do what we say. And then they put all this money, and it's creating rifts in society. We're basically fighting each other because we're so different. And when money is involved, that can mean your life. So think about the redlining It's affected the mortgage industry since its inception. So why wouldn't it affect regular society and culture in the world, in a civilized culture like ours? Does anybody honestly think the segregation and racism is good for us? I'm not saying you gotta live with other races and other societies and cultures. This starts at the border. Unfortunately, this starts at the border, and we have a commander-in-chief that's lost his mind. And we were already in panic and chaos when Trump was in office, so this just got worse.